Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dice Advice. Right here, I am Tiffany, along with my partner Eclipse. Today, we'll be discussing races from the Player's Handbook.
All right, so kicking off our starting of the player's handbook, we're looking at the dwarves. They are your classic tanky build, with a +2/+2 in their attributes. You really can't go wrong, especially with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. They became a jack of all trades, so to speak. You gain tool proficiencies just by playing as them, as well as dark vision, dwarven resilience, and combat training. Uh, So basically, if you are playing a class that lacks in the weapon proficiency area, this can be a picker up for you. They have one subclass, which is discussed in another book called the Droger, but most people avoid playing those. After the dwarves, we look at the elves. The elves are vast and many in the number of sub races they have. They are everything from quick and stabby to your artificers and mages. Their most notable thing that I can think of is the immediate proficiency in perception and their Fey ancestry skill, which allows them advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can no longer put them to sleep. The player handbook goes to explain that the wood elves and drow are a thing, but honestly, we're going to cover all that at a later point because there's just so many variants for the elven race. I think that Tiffany over there can pick us up on the halfling.
Oh, yes, the Halflings. So many to choose from. They come in a wide variety of different sub races to pick from, but a main thing that they come with is lucky, which is a pretty big thing for Halflings, in my opinion. On top of their
The
+2 modifier to dexterity. Would you care to explain a little bit more on halflings? Because I know they're your favorite race.
they're definitely my favorite. The lucky the save on any nat ones, especially if your DM homebrews a critical fail chart. There is so many times where that will save you and get you your needed last hit. Um, I do think that it should be noted that my favorite type of halfling to play is the ghostly, simply because of the non-verbal communication that they have. Or it's ghastly, I think. I might have just mispronounced it.
I do like how
But
you added in
that
about
they're
that. I'm sorry to cut you off there a little bit though, but
they're
I just love how you added in about the crit fails on D20s. Uh,
fine. The amount of times I have been
uh,
screwed by a DM's crit fail counter, and a lot of times, unfortunately, homebrewed crit fail tables are not even accurate if relevant to the situation, making your miss on an attack that would have won a fight all that more agonizing as your character stumbles up and ends up stabbing themselves in the eye and falling down a flight of stairs, or some random bullshit like that.
we have plenty of those stories to tell at a later time though, and man, they're funny looking back, but they're not too fun in the moment.
That's definite. All right, so next up, do you want to take it away with the human?
Sure. The humans are one of your better, not really like better class races, but they're pretty suited for any other class because they get a static +1 to all of their ability scores, which can come in handy and help even out your stats a little bit. Other than that, there isn't entirely too much to say about the humans. They have different variants and different sub races that are fun to play with. My personal favorite is the variant human which lets you start off with a feat, which feats can come in pretty handy, especially starting at level 1.
Uh,
There's
Levels 1 through 3, that access to the extra feat can take you a long way, especially being a fighter and you take, for instance, the Great Weapon feat, where I believe you actually used this in our last campaign. Wasn't it a plus 5, what? Oh
it's
no, it's a
uh
minus
it's
5 to
minus
hit.
5 to hit
Yeah,
for plus
plus 10
10 damage.
damage.
It's not that bad of a trade-off early on because it lets you get that extra damage in and possibly one-shot a lot of the weaker monsters you encounter. But as you level up, that feat sadly does not put as much to the table as you'd hope.
True, but in the early games, that can be a make or break on a one shot.
It does. It's really nice in those times.
Do you know next up on our list is your favorite of the races in the player's handbook, actually, the Dragonborn.
Ah, you're right. The Dragonborn. It was the very first race I ever played. I played as a fighter Dragonborn my first time ever playing. And boy, it was an experience. They come with
One
a nice +2 to strength, which is nice for the more martial classes. And they also come with their own fire breath weapon that's all based off of the color of Dragonborn you decide to start off with. Can come in
yeah,
handy, but depending on the situation, it can actually be your downfall.
I completely agree with that. I have seen many of people accidentally friendly fire because they forgot the range on their breath attack. And unfortunately, during the early levels, it's much like the Great Weapon Fighter, where it can possibly kill a player in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, it is fun to use though, and they're definitely an interesting race to play because not too many races give you a little bonus attack that you have in your arsenal, like the Dragonborn do.
Right? Oh no. I believe next up on our list that we have to cover today is the gnomes. These happy little fellas are very good at being rogues. They're gnomish cutting, or gnomes cutting. I don't know how it's actually listed in the player's handbook, but what it does is I know it gives them advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. So if you're ever in a situation where you need a resistance on mind control, that's always a place to look through. They also have a few different sub races that you are able to choose from that'll help to add a pickup when you need it the most.
Don't forget about them getting that dark vision. Dark vision comes in handy more than one time. It's really nice to have.
I honestly wouldn't know about not having it because almost all of my players have, but I know there's been a few moments where you've been going in blindly because we haven't had a torch. Especially in this last campaign when you were wandering around in the madhouse.
Yeah, I just gotta go with what I was told. I gotta love blindly walking into a dark area. Never know what's around the corner.
And I'm just glad we made it out of that encounter alive.
Yeah. Moving on to the next race in the player's handbook, we have the half elf. Half elves are really good, depending on the caster you choose to be. They give you a nice +2 modifier to your charisma, which makes them ideal. I'd say warlocks, am I right? I don't dabble too much with the spell casting classes.
So the hit in the warlock and the charisma is a good idea, but whenever I play a half elf, honestly, most of the time I push more towards being that bard because their skill versatility helps to just fill up a proficiency in all the other ones. All the skills that you have unchecked already, because honestly, whenever it comes down to it, most of the time you need a proficiency. Although the bard does give you the jack of all trades feat. When we get into that on the classes video, I'll go more into depth on how that affects everything. But without it, it still helps you get a nice pickup off the bat.
Yeah, you're right. It actually truly does make your bard the jack of all trades. I honestly didn't really notice that at the beginning because I haven't really dabbled too much with the half races.
A lot of the half elven players and half orc players, I don't know if there's any other races like that, but a lot of them will give you a huge advantage. For instance, our next contestant, the half orc, comes with a nasty ability, which basically takes your criticals and makes them even more damaging. Especially when you get DM like ours, that is one to allow you to roll that extra critical hit die for damage. It adds yet another dice of damage to it. So essentially, you're going to be making mashed potatoes out of whatever you smack early game, and late game, you're going to be putting out. If that's not enough with the half orcs, though, you also get things like their menacing, which gives you intimidation proficiency. You get dark vision with them. You even get a version of a pick me up, which is called Relentless Endurance, and it gives you a +1 hit point instead of dropping to 0 whenever you would at first be hit with that. Needless to say, it is honestly my favorite barbarian
Don't
to
forget
play.
though, you can't use the relentless attack. Relentless endurance. Sorry about that. More than once per long rest. So it does come with that
Yes,
slight drawback, so gotta be
to
prepared
be
for it.
to be fair, our DM never gives us time for a rest, so I completely understand where that would wear out. All right. I believe our last race in the player's handbook is actually the Tiefling. These guys used to be my favorite race for a long time until I started playing the Halflings. There's, since the addition of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Banathar's Guide and all the other books, there have been so many variants added onto them. But you can never go wrong with the original because of the Infernal Legacy giving you additional spells on 3rd and 5th level. And it also gives you Infernal as a language off the bat, as well as Dark Vision and a resistance to fire damage. These guys can be nasty, and are honestly my choice for a Warlock class.
They do get that nice hellish rebuke at 3rd level for free, not allocated with their warlock spells.
Yes, and you can cast it once as a 2nd level with it too, which makes it even more scary.
It does.
Alright, and I believe that wraps up the basic bitches known as races.
Until next time.